Welcome to the Geek Assassin Podcast, where nostalgia isn't just remembered, it's hunted down, dissected, and celebrated. I'm your host and your guide through the weird and wonderful and the downright legendary. Here we dive headfirst into 80s culture, geek lore, comic books, unexplained phenomenon, and every strange whisper that the universe has to offer. If it shaped our imagination or it fueled our fandom, if it made us stay up late and wondering, could this be real? We're talking about it right here. Grab your dice, dust off your VHS tapes, and tighten your tinfoil hats because the hunt for all things geek starts now. The Geek Assassin Podcast. Welcome to the Geek Assassin Podcast. My name is Ari. I'm your guild master. And for the next hour, we're going to be talking about everything geek and geekdom. And in this particular episode, I'm joined by my good friend Jason, who you may remember as being one of the co-hosts of the previous podcast that we did a few years ago called the Torvis Podcast, which was the precursor to the Geek Assassin. We are now into a new season, a new podcast, a new direction. So welcome, Jason, to the Geek Assassin Podcast.
Glad to be here. New show, same geeks.
That's true. So today we have a very special show that we're going to be tackling. This one is going to be about board games and games in general. So board games go back thousands of years, and there's so many different genres of board games. It's really hard to kind of nail down what is considered really cool, what isn't, because there's so much variety. I mean, you have everything from chess to Monopoly to the Settlers of Catan to Axis and Allies, you name it. It really spans a massive subgenre within board games. And then you could argue, well, what is a board game? Is it a board game, or are we talking tabletop games? Are we talking about Warhammer? Are we talking about Dungeons and Dragons? Are we talking about Magic? So I think we're going to kind of incorporate lots of different things, but maybe specifically Jason's probably going to talk about board games in particular, but I'm also going to be throwing out some trivia about games as well. So Jason, let's start talking about board games, and you in particular are a big fan of the board game, correct?
I am a big fan of the board game. Not the biggest fan in the world, but I'm okay on the board game scale.
Okay,
I don't
so
know what
let
percentile I fall in, but I'm a solid. I have faith in my ability as a board gamer.
so what was the first board game that you ever played that you can remember?
That I remember, like
Yeah.
so, I probably something like chess or checkers, and then chess. We had like Mastermind, Othello,
Mhm.
backgammon, sort of family board gamey kind of things. Then we got into like Monopoly, careers, like those kind of family games
Yeah.
thing. And then the one that changed life for me was Risk in the 70s. So that was where my real board game stuff starts in my personal lived experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and I find that I mean most people probably kind of follow that same path of board games. They start in those like general things, Monopoly or whatever, and then it goes off into the more interesting games, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because there are thousands out there. So, what was the first game after that you? What was the first game that you played that was not that the general public was playing, something that was a little bit more subgenre that you were like, whoa, this is different and this is really cool.
Well, okay, so like I said, I went from Risk, which was at in the 70s, that was kind of a big thing. But that was like the gateway drug, and it took me into Axis and Allies when that came out. That was the next sort of evolution in my board gaming career, I guess. Um, that really opened things up. Um, so that was what, 84 or something like that, I think Axis and Allies was. And then that was part of the Milton Bradley Game Master series.
Yeah.
And then it came out with a bunch of other games, and those are really still to this day the heart and soul of my gaming thing. You've got Axis and Allies, Fortress America, Shogun, later named Samurai Swords, and some other I name. You
Uh-huh.
had Conquest of the Empire, boarding broadsides and boarding parties. That was like the Game Master series. They re-released things later, but that series there really really that's where I became a real board game thing. Although
Now,
we did a ton of Risk before that.
are these all considered war games that you just mentioned?
They're not war games. They're like board games of the Ameritrash subgenre. I would say there's the old school Ameritrash and the new school Euro game categories
Okay.
of things. So the Ameritrash have they're like big games with lots of pieces and what some people call heavy rules, but after playing role playing games, they're so sort of light medium rules kind of
Mhm.
things. So but yeah, lots of plastic pieces and goodness. So that's why they have such replayability value over all these years that you just play them so many times and they're still good. They're
Now,
still good now.
but these games, all of the games that you mentioned, are essentially, would you say like army versus army trying to take over like a particular land? Is that
Oh,
what
I see
this,
what you mean.
you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
they're war games in that sense, but I would say they're not war games in the sense of like of the old Avalon Hill SPI, like the boxed hex encounter. There's war games that have the little square cardboard chits that go in the hexes and stuff. Those are war games is kind of how
Yeah.
maybe there's another way of distinguishing them, but I that's how I distinguish between a
Yeah.
war game or a board game that's about war type of thing. So
Okay.
in a way, Axis and Allies is a war game, but war gamers would kind of sneer at it as being more of a board game,
Right.
right? But if you were like a Monopoly person, I guess to you that would be a heavy war game. But if you were into like World in Flames or Advanced Third Reich or something, then you'd look at Axis and Allies as being a light board game. So it's perspectives of where you're coming from, right?
Okay. And so as I mentioned at the top of the show, I was saying we're talking about board games, but there's also
Hmm.
tabletop games too, which D&D and a many role-playing games fall into, which is a
Yeah.
different genre of what we're talking about today. But so the board games, I asked you to make a list of your kind of favorite games.
Hmm.
Can you just spout
It's
off that
it, it's
list?
super hard to narrow it down, but yeah, I
Of
can.
course.
Yeah.
So look at that list and without describe, just name them first of all. What your is this your top five or 10? What are you going to tell us?
Um, let's go top 10-ish, roughly speaking. But okay, and some of them they got a lot of expansions too. So it's not just a single game,
Right.
right? Like Risk, there was the original Risk that I played in the 70s,
Yeah.
and then there's a bunch of different ones, but Risk 2210 is awesome with the expansions. There's a Legacy Risk that is awesome. Till to this day, I wouldn't play regular Risk, but those ones I would still play because they've got some things that make them better. There's a plain old Axis and Allies from '84. They came out with, I don't know, a half dozen expansions. I've got shelves full of different expansions for Axis and Allies, so it's not just one thing.
Okay.
Fortress America, probably one of the best games ever designed, most underrated game for general knowledge and stuff. People that do rate it generally rate it pretty high. Samurai Swords is a newer name, but when I started with it, was called Shogun. These are all from this Milton Bradley Game Master series of the 80s. Those ones I played the heck out of those. There's also a Conquest of the Empire. It's a Roman version of the game. There's a boarding boarding parties and broadsides and boarding parties, which I have. It took me a long time to find, but I haven't actually played it yet because it was the last one from that series. There, it's a little different than the other ones, but they're all basically Risk on steroids with
Right.
other things. Each of them have a thing that makes them cool. That's why I started my thing with Risk, sort of as the heart, and then other things that make it better is my kind of genre of
Okay.
of games. Like in a computer game, people it would be like the strategy, the 4X games would be this is the board game equivalent, I think, that
Okay.
I'm the genre that I'm in
Yep.
for that. Other games beyond that, there was in the 2000s, there was a company called Eagle Games that was trying to revive the spirit of the Game Master series, and they came out with a game called Attack. That's a really good game. They also came out with a refresh of the Conquest of Empire game so that you could play it in the classic mode. Plus, they made a newer version of it as well, so the pieces you could use in different ways.
Mhm.
Um, there's a great space game called Twilight Imperium.
Yep.
It's super chunky, big. tons of plastic pieces. You can play it like all weekend. It's like a super involved game. It's kind of in it's not quite a war game, but it's getting into the time to play light war games. Recently, actually, I've been introduced to a game called Eclipse, which is does about 80% of what Twilight Imperium does with about 20% of the time investment. So that's a really good game that way. I also just got into this game called Cthulhu Wars, which is like doing it's like doing Axis and Allies, but you're having like the Lovecraftian elder gods, great ones fighting against each other for domination of Earth or the Dreamlands or different different areas and stuff. So that's like super cool as a favorite. There's a cheap 70s game called Cosmic Encounter. It had later iterations that instead from going cheap little cardboard pieces to plastic pieces as the thing went around.
Yeah.
Super playable. Actually, Magic the Gathering is based and in a large part was inspired by Cosmic Encounter if you want a piece of trivia. So that's a really good one on my list. Last couple ones on the list, I don't know if it's exactly 10, but would be Renegade Legion, which is made by the same people that made BattleTech. I just happen to like it a little better, even though I played a lot of BattleTech. Um, and yeah, Aerotech and City Tech and all the things that went with BattleTech.
Yeah.
People think of BattleTech as a computer game, but it started out as a board game, role-playing game, kind of a weird hybrid there.
Hmm.
And then there's a game Silent Death, which is a little space fighter game, which is just sweet, great mechanics under unknown classic. So those, if I had to narrow it down to some things, that would be that. But there's like dozens of games that I could go on forever. But we got to keep this contained.
So it's interesting because how you were interested into or introduced to board games is a little bit different than me. So I had a more,
Mhm.
I guess, classic exposure. So when I was growing up, we used to play a lot of Scrabble. That was like a board game that I played with my mom. It was, every week we'd play, which was amazing. I always hated Monopoly. It was not a game that I liked. I have some
Yeah.
trivia about that, which is going to come up in a second.
Hmm.
So, Trivia Pursuit was a massive one that we played in my family forever because I
Oh
love
yeah.
trivia and all the expansions for it became pretty cool and pretty amazing. So Trivia Pursuit was it was really fun because before we had ChatGPT and we had all the computers and stuff, you literally would have to call up a friend and be like, "Do you know the answer to this? Because I have no way of finding out." And that's how we did
Oh,
information.
that's how you guys did it. We did is we played a lot of Trivial Pursuit, but we did it at Christmas time with the
Yeah,
family, and so we would do it in teams, right? So you do it with like your uncle or something. So you get the things where you're like, who knows these old things from then? The people that lived through it, right? And then who knows this newfangled stuff? So it was you got a good blend. You partnered with someone else that could
yeah,
cover the areas that you couldn't, and
yeah.
then you'd play it. So you have all the different people, so you could get this big family group to do Trivial Pursuit. We did that. Played Scrabble with my grandma, but yeah, those are more
Yeah.
family things rather than friend games.
Yeah, so those are kind of like the two that I started with, and then I went into Risk. It's funny, Risk is kind of like it's the gateway drug game, in my
It's a
opinion.
nexus of things from people back then. I wonder what new people now. If Alex was here, he could tell us what
Uh,
younger people's nexus is. But
Risk was
um,
fun, like it really was, and the expansion sets for it. I played a couple, but always loved just the concept because it was basic, but it was way more advanced than the typical Milton Bradley,
yeah,
snakes and
there
ladders
was
thing.
Stratego too. That was another one of those 70s ones that didn't quite
Right.
make the cut, but it was still kind of cool in its own way.
So I have a couple questions about some of the games that you had mentioned, but before that, I'm going to add my first
Hmm.
piece of trivia for the Geek Assassin podcast for board games. And the first one is I've jotted these down. The oldest known board game is called Senet, and it dates back to over 5,000 years ago in ancient Egypt. It's older than most forms of written language. So gaming is literally older than recorded history. So
Good
there
luck
you
reading the rule book on that one.
yeah. So it very, very interesting. So I looked it up, and Sinet apparently there's 30 squares on it, and your job is to be able to maneuver your pieces from one end to the other, which is symbolic of moving through life to the afterlife. That is what the game is
Oh,
based on.
nice.
Yeah.
Like the river. Yeah. Okay, cool.
So there we go. So Sinet is the oldest known game apparently. So, Jason, let me ask you about a couple things here. So, you mentioned Fortress America is, as you said, absolutely one of your favorites, correct?
Absolutely. Fortress America. It was a game that was much mocked because it's basically, although these days it might seem less less mockable than it was back then to some people. But basically, if you remember the movie Red Dawn from
Hmm.
the 80s, it was sort of like that. America pisses everybody off and everyone gangs up on America, except Canada stays neutral.
Yeah,
But you've got like the southern, all of South and Central America come up from the south. You get the commies coming from the East Coast,
yeah,
and then you get the Asian alliance coming from the West Coast, and you got three against one. And the Americans get, because remember there was a Reagan with his Star Wars
hmm,
system for things, so the Americans had this special laser Star Wars system to shoot down other people's stuff, and the Americans got to have these partisan characters. So it's like the Wolverines from Red Dawn that come up, Wolverines, right? And so they get to come up and they. So it was a really, and it's a super good game because it's super balanced. It's part of this Game Master series. So it's a 1986 game, but it's like I played it so many times, and every time it's balanced. Once you learn one thing and you think, okay, I'll do this, and the next time the other guys do a thing, and it's just every time is good at, and you can play with the three sides. If you're against someone who's really good, you put them as the American,
yeah,
and then you cooperate against them. But if the person's not as experienced, that's the American, you do it as a competitive game so that you compete for between the red commies from the east,
yeah,
the blue sorry, I should do south, the blue southern forces from South America, and the yellows from the east that are coming in, and if they can get an individual victory.
yeah,
So if they have to compete against each other, then where they have overlaps in their areas, they don't cooperate, which makes it, if
yep,
they're they're not as efficient, so then it makes it easier for the American guy. The Americans get these cards they get to play because they can regenerate things, and people pop up in the occupied territories and stuff. It's just so well balanced, and it's got some really good mechanics in terms of like if people are used to Axis and Allies, it's got it where the more valuable units like the air units, there's mechanized units, there's regular infantry units, and there's an order of battle that we can't get into all the details. But anyway, that makes it really a special game the way that it plays out. It's just
how
really good.
long would a
Every
typical
single time it's been a solid play.
how long would a game session last?
That's probably like a four hour-ish game. Like basically these kind of board games are usually like an afternoon kind of thing. I mean, if you really you can go really slow, you can go really fast, but generally I think they're around a 4 hour type of thing as I remember it.
Okay.
Um, for playing those kinds of games. We did expansions and stuff and did them where we built our own maps and built things out and played longer and stuff like that and built more pieces. But the general game I think is around a 4 hour game. Whereas you've got, remember I was mentioning the Euro games, which are shorter, like 1 or 2 hour
Yeah.
lighter games that are there, and then you get the war games which go weeks, months, or like whole weekends. Like I remember with Twilight Imperium too. So there's a variety in how long of a game you can have and how deep a game gets.
Yeah.
But these kind of to me, they hit the sweet spot. You can do them you have to dedicate a whole night or afternoon to it, but you can get a really good gameplay out of that.
Now, you also mentioned Shogun, which changed its name to Samurai. What's it called? What did it change to?
It went from Shogun to Samurai Swords, and I've learned, I don't have a copy of it yet, but it starts with an I, but there's a new version that came out in the 2010,
Okay.
something like that. But it's still basically the same game as
Why
near as I can see from
why
the
did it
stuff.
change? What was there a copyright thing that
Something to
happened?
do with the Shogun novel and stuff, which is ridiculous because I don't know how do you trademark or copyright or whatever Shogun, like it's it's like the Japanese warlord thing. So I don't know why. So that might be a trivia thing. Is like how I don't understand why they had to even change the name, but whatever. For some reason that they had to, but whatever. So I got one box that says Shogun, one that says Samurai Swords on it, but it's the same game otherwise. It's just a branding thing, and that game's really good too because you've got a bidding system, so you bid for turns.
Yeah.
You you can hire Ronin, mercenary samurai. You can
Yeah.
hire ninjas to assassinate the other guys. So the bidding, you bid to go who's first, second, whatever. If you don't bid, then you randomly choose. They've got these swords that you sort of like draw
Right. Yeah.
sticks for. So it's a really good game too. Again, played that one a lot of times, and
Who made that one? Who made Samurai
that's
Shogun?
that's also all of these are the Milton Bradley Game Master series from the 80s. That's
Okay.
why those are probably the three, probably like they're kind of similar, but they each have their own unique charm. Axis and Allies, Fortress America, Shogun.
Okay.
Those are like I would say the core of my being raised as a real gamer, quote.
So when you started gaming in the 70s and 80s, that was kind of like the your formative years. Now,
Yeah,
something
formative. Yeah.
happened in the 90s. The board games, there was a massive dip in purchase of board games, and the whole industry almost went under. I was reading, and the game that saved the
Like
board game.
comics. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know what game saved board games in the 1990s? The Settlers of Catan
Oh,
saved board
Settlers of
games
Catan. Yes, yeah.
in the
That's how I
1990s.
was talking about that being the gateway drug. If you want to bring non-gamers into game, it's
Yes.
like don't start people with Monopoly. Start them with Settlers of Catan. I would even say Carcassonne was even better for that, but popularly Settlers of Catan. They're great, and they've got some great expansions for Settlers of Catan. The base game is good, but there's some even better ones. But
So
go
what
ahead.
it says the when Catan launched in 1995, it sparked the Euro game renaissance and revived
Mhm.
board gaming culture worldwide. It was so influential that NASA astronauts took a copy to the International Space Station.
Wow, that I did not know.
So there you go, the Settlers of Catan. I played it a few times. Yeah, so
No,
um,
it's great because
yeah,
you've got like the tiles, the trading, all kinds of stuff. There's some great expansions for it. So there's a Wall of China expand. They had these double-sided ones.
yeah,
Not a lot of people played these because they were like the German games. They came with like a insert of English rules,
yeah.
but whatever, it's not that tough. But
Uh-huh.
but they came as a double-sided game, so you'd have two types of games. You flip the board over and play a different game. Can't remember which ones were matched with which, but you had a Great Wall of China, you had an Alexander the Great, you had an Egypt one, Trojan War one. So they all each had their cool things. So the Wall of China one was good because you're competing against each other, but there's these barbarians that would sweep down, so you had to put some of your resources to building the wall to keep them out. So it
Yep.
made it a cooperative and competitive game at the same time,
Yep.
right? The Trojan War one was awesome because you didn't know what side everybody's on, so you don't know when you're trading with someone. Are you helping the Trojans or are you
Right.
helping the Greeks? Which
Yeah.
side until later? So just like it's just one little twist, just makes it a great game. Sometimes it's variants of games and expansions. This is maybe a common theme with mine is I like when you get a game that's a good game
Yeah.
you can play a lot of it, but if you make just a little change, then you can play a lot more of it. So I might not have as many games as some people, but I have a lot of depth in the games and the amount of variance of it. So
Yeah.
a lot of variations within the same thing. When you know what
Yes.
you like, you know what you like.
So I've obviously been to your house and and seen your collection. So I affectionately call Jason the collector. And he has a lot of board
Fair.
games, but the one thing I have noticed is he has a lot of expansions to said board games, is what he's referring to. Um, so this is the cool thing. If the developers of the game are switched on, then the expansion sets are pretty cool. However,
Hmm.
eventually what happens is they have to keep expanding in order to keep the product line going. And this is where almost always, without fail, every
Yep.
game, no matter what it is, goes into the toilet because then it just becomes a money-making venture. I have seen it in Magic. I've seen it in Dungeons and Dragons. I've seen it in Vampire. I've seen it in and you could probably mention almost every board game thing that's out there. So there is there's a shelf life to the board games on how
Yeah.
good they are.
Yeah, there's some because yeah, you got to know what are the good expansions, what are the bad expansions, where the jump to shark moment is, and then sometimes they have a shitty one, and then a later one's good
Yep.
again. So it doesn't necessarily go like that. But really, if you have people that care about the game and still make it, and a lot of these ones have like fan expansions and stuff that you can do too. So some of them, like even like I say, Risk being the core basic game that's there
Yeah.
people kind of get sick of Risk because it's like it's the simple thing. It's really cool to play for a while, but then you want more. So
Yeah.
if you want more, Risk 2210, amazing, right?
Okay.
It just adds enough to make it really interesting. You've got underwater cities, you can go to the moon, you've got nukes. There's a bunch of cool stuff like that. There's even other expansions where you can go to Mars and other planets and stuff that's a little more obscure, but that makes it really cool. They had one that was an underworld one that's kind of like that, but it's not as good. I don't like that. They had a Middle Earth one.
Yeah.
It doesn't cap. It's like, okay, Risk is a big name. Tolkien, Middle-earth, Lord of the Rings is a big name. You put them together, it's not a satisfying game. For me, some people think it's okay, but I just
Yeah.
don't think it's up. Those ones are you know, I don't even have a copy. That's what I think of them. That me as a completist, but if
Yeah.
I don't have something that's in a set of things, then that tells you that I don't think very highly of them
Now,
at all. Then there's a Risk Legacy, though, for the
yeah.
last of the Risk ones.
Uh-huh.
Risk Legacy, which is
Yeah.
great. There's other Legacy games too, which we can get to something else from
Yeah.
other people like a lot. But the Legacy games, you play it once, and then after you play it, you get these stickers that you put on the board and it changes the board and you get new pieces and stuff. Then when
Mhm.
you play it the next game, it's new. So it evolves as you play it. So the first time we played, I think it was like, is it 13 games or 15 games or 17 games?
Yeah.
Um, you do it in each time you play, and then the person who wins the most games out of that gets to keep the game. They're the winner of the game, and they
Yeah.
get to keep the game. But it changes each time, which is super cool. You can't have the same the downside of it. Not well, I mean, marketing wise, it's brilliant, but from collecting wise, it's not so brilliant because you got stickers on the board and you can't undo it and then redo it. You have to buy another copy because you got stickers and markers and stuff on the thing. But I can tell you whole stories about that. But it makes a great story. So it turns a basic game into a really super cool game.
So I remember my first exposure to actually a war game, kind of like Risk, was after Risk, but it was actual war game. So I was playing D&D at a buddy's house, and I played with a couple guys who are older than me. And I was a teenager at the time, and I remember asking my buddy at the time. His name was Eric, and I looked in one of the other rooms. It wasn't the room we played D&D in, but it was like a different room, and there was a table there, and there was a game
Set
on.
up.
And I
Yeah.
looked at it, and there was these little cardboard pieces that were stacked in little piles. And I was like, "Hey, Eric, what is this?" And he's like, "Oh, it's a war game." I can't remember which one it was. And then he started describing how it worked
Probably
with the numbers
Decline
on
and Fall of the
pieces.
Third Reich or something like that,
Yeah,
probably.
and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and he was a
Yeah.
historian. He actually got his you would actually like him because he got his degree in history, and he became a history
Hmm.
teacher and the whole thing. So you guys have a lot in common.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he told me about it, and then I was like, "Oh, how long have you been playing this?" It's like, "Oh, this game we've played for the last 3 weeks." I'm like, "Sorry, 3 weeks?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's ongoing. We do a few hours, and then you leave it, and then you come back to it." So that was a new phenomenon because most people, when they think of board games, they're like, "Oh, it's over in 3 hours, and that's it."
Hmm.
But there are a subsection of games which carry on for days, weeks, or even
Weeks, months,
months.
years.
Yeah, so something to keep in perspective, I guess.
The World in Flames game, I think they have one of the scenarios is like 100 hours is one of their starter scenarios
Yeah.
of play to get you going with it.
So another thing for trivia that I'm going to talk about. So although we're not going to be talking about it in this episode, and we have in a previous in our Torvus podcast when we did Dungeons and Dragons, Dungeons and
Check those
Dragons.
out. Maybe a thing somewhere.
Yeah. Dungeons and Dragons shaped video games. So many core
Mm,
role-playing game mechanics, hit points, levels, classes, and even the idea of loot tables came directly from early Dungeons and Dragons. So without tabletop role-playing games, modern video games would look completely different.
totally. Yeah.
So,
And D&D came out of wargaming, right? That's the
correct.
thing. You have to remember when we were talking about how chainmail is a
Yeah.
war game, and the chainmail had the fantasy stuff of basically the appendix of the chainmail is, hey, here's some ways of doing it with fantasy, and D&D came into that. Simplified people, okay, I know there's more to it than that, but that's a simplified version of things for people here.
You have chainmail, don't you?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
showed it on the episode we had with the four of us.
Yeah. So Jason has some old stuff that I thought was awesome. Um, So Warhammer 40,000 began as a fantasy spin-off. So originally 40K started as a sci-fi alternative to Warhammer Fantasy Battles, not its own universe. Now it's one of the largest and most detailed settings in geek culture, grim dark memes included. So Warhammer, massive. It's crazy
It's
how
its own thing. They have their own stores. It's like a
yeah.
huge deal. Yeah.
Yeah, and I work with a ton of people that do it, and it's very interesting. I've never played Warhammer. It's one of those things, Jay. You know what I'm about to say. I'm afraid of dipping my toe into yet another geek thing, and I'm like,
Someone's gonna push you in the pool, man.
oh yeah,
It's like And you can
Time,
see
right?
how deep you can go in. There's a whole dark side to that too. But yeah, it's amazing the stuff with Warhammer and then Warhammer 40K over the years, and they've got
Yeah.
a bunch of other games. But that's like its own kind of thing. And again, it's one of those. Yes, it's war gamey. Yes, it's board gamey. I don't have the direct experience to be like an expert in that area because like I have only so much time to do things, and the miniature painting is kind of a hobby of its own.
Yeah.
And the playing of it and the but I think it's super cool, but it was one of those things that I didn't have the enough time allotment to get into because I know that if I get into things I have to get really into them, and that was a
Yeah.
deep in thing.
Yeah, that's I guess one of the things that geek culture we all probably recognize that there's only so much time. So what are we going to delve into?
Yeah.
You have to pick and choose. And I think that typically in an earlier age is when we kind of set our things. Um,
Hmm.
Not to say that it's impossible, but I can't imagine being like, hey, I should do Warhammer and do 40K now. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't have time for it. So that's
Yeah,
why
people did that before.
I
You had the
haven't done
people
it.
doing the Napoleonics and the
Yeah.
medievals and like the war game guys. There was a chit counter war games, but there was also the little painted miniature guys, and you can even see the guys like in the before D&D, like in the 50s and 60s doing it. And war games that could be a whole show of its own, but we'll try to stay to the board games. Sorry.
But I actually think it's actually pretty cool because you see people of all ages that are playing board games or Warhammer. I mean, you'll get a 12-year-old and then you'll get like a 60-year-old and it spans the ages. It's really quite cool.
Yeah.
How it brings together different demographics, to be honest.
Yeah, kind of like chess too, right? Like in a way, it's the same kind of thing. You can have that little kid playing against the old man, right?
Right.
By the way, I miss
Um,
our old chess get-togethers we used to do with the old guys. Yeah.
Here's a thing about chess, which I learned. There are by I think 6 moves on a chessboard. It's 1 to the power of 10 to the 100th, 20th, or something like that. It was one with 120 zeros behind. This is how many different combinations of chess moves there are. There are more chess moves. I found this out today than there are atoms in the universe. Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
okay. I don't know about that. That doesn't sound right to me, but I'm no math genius, so
So I'm not a math. So I
I know
looked.
I'm not taking anything with chess is complicated, but the universe got a lot of atoms in it.
That's what the stat is, and I was like, it's one of those things. Is like, So I looked it up. So I'm going to allow the viewer and you to look that up as well. So that is apparently, it seems contradictory, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm willing to say it's got a lot, but then what does it make something like Go or something have then if chess has got that much?
It's
So I don't
crazy.
know.
So that was a quote that I heard today. But so on the heels of that, I'm going to talk about Magic the Gathering because this also has a really large subset of possibilities. Now, Jason and I have been playing Magic for a long time. I got involved in
Did an
Magic.
episode on that too?
Yeah, I'd like to revisit that in more detail.
Yes.
I started in just when it came out, 93, and I played with the Alpha series. I lost Black Lotus Beta series and an Anti back in the 90s. So I have lots of different
Painful,
stories.
man.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here's the trivia on Magic, which I consider to be a tabletop game, not necessarily board game. An amazing game, love it. So Magic the Gathering is mathematically wild. Magic the Gathering has been proven to be Turing complete, which means, in theory, a game of Magic can simulate a computer. It literally is possible to create infinite loops, computational gates, and logical
Yes.
paradoxes. That's pretty cool.
Infinite loops. We've all experienced infinite loops.
We have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Remember I mentioned that game called Cosmic Encounter before? So
Yes.
yeah, if you look into the thing that Cosmic Encounter was an influence on Magic. I have a friend that knows more about that kind of stuff there. But it's a great game because it's got all these alien races fighting over these planets, and each of them have their own special abilities,
Yeah.
and their special abilities there's the basic rules, and then each race has its own abilities that change how the basic rules work. So like Magic cards, right? You have a basic
Crazy.
way the game works, and then they change the way that it goes. So it's simple, but
Yeah.
same as chess, right? Like there's only so many rules, but it's the combinations and permutations of it that make it really interesting.
And the thing about rules is a lot of these games, some have simple rule sets, and other gaming rules are incredibly complicated. I have seen
Yeah.
rule books that are massive,
Yeah.
and I don't even know how people play them. I know that there's obviously there has to be a clientele for it, but Jay,
hmm
think of the most complicated board game that you've ever played that you were like, oh my goodness, what comes to
Yeah,
mind?
some of them you got to research, but that's part of the thing is it's a different type of person, right? Like some people just want to play a game, but some of the games they teach you as you go along. So if you enjoy learning and enjoy the details of it, it's like in D and we don't want to get too much into role playing, but in D&D, right? Like reading the Dungeon Master's Guide in it's in some ways it's a chore, but in other ways it's a joy because you're learning and it's got all kinds of interesting stuff you're discovering. It's like, oh my God, look at this cool thing, look at this cool thing.
Right.
So some people get bogged down. They go, oh my God, look at all this text. I don't want to read all this stuff. And other
Yeah.
people get in. It's like, oh my God, this is great. We'll get into this stuff, right? It's like sometimes people with books too. It's like, oh my God, you've got this big, giant, thick book. And someone else is like, oh my God, great. I get this whole world I get to dive into. So that's why there's such a variety of things from checkers on up to whatever the most complicated one you can think of, right? So
And
something
when
for everyone.
there is, well, so people always think that, games or strategy games or any games in general are just for kids or just for geeks. Well, that's not entirely true because next piece of trivia, Jay, is tabletop gaming helped intelligence agencies. During the Cold
hmm
War, analysts used war games to simulate geopolitical conflict. Some early games inspired modern strategic models still used by military planners today. Fortress
hmm
America vibes. So there you go.
Well, the war games also come from war games. There's simulations and stuff, and you get back into the German generals and stuff like the Prussians and stuff. But anyway, there's a lot of stuff where the war games were used for military purposes, and then they became these games, and so it comes full circle. And then military people do gaming simulations and stuff
Right.
too. So
Well,
there's a lot of connections between the different things.
okay, so
And
I'm going to
also
put.
that great movie War Games talking about
Oh, damn, you did it. I was going to ask you some trivia. So I was going to say, shall we play a game? What movie is that from?
well,
Right. You
go.
just
You know
mentioned
how you win the game?
not play.
Not play. That's right. And there's a lesson to anybody out there right now that's in charge of things. Don't play the nuclear war game. Everybody is one thing. Playing these games is great. We play games that involve war and killing people. That's different than playing with real people's lives and killing people. And war games, especially war games involve nukes, don't play. More
Yes.
at risk than ever, and then people don't realize and take it seriously. At least in the 80s, people took nuclear war seriously. But anyway, I'll pull back from that.
Do you remember in War Games what the professor's name was?
No. Names, you know me with names.
That's Professor
Remembering
Falcon,
people's name. Oh,
right?
okay.
And his son that died, his name was Joshua.
Oh,
And so the computer, the Whopper, was based on his son Joshua. It was anyway. Um, yeah, I don't know why I remember those things. It's
all
not
of
good.
that I forgot. That's
Yeah.
good. That's why we're a good team because you remember things that I have no chance of remembering.
So Jay, here's my next question. You have a few dozen board games in your house, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now that doesn't include expansions, which you probably have. You could have a dozen expansions
Yeah,
to
there's
even one game.
yeah, to even one game. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, lots of
Um,
expansions.
do you have a game that is currently on your shelf that you have expansion sets for that you have never played?
Yes, I
What?
have a game. So like World in Flames I mentioned, it's a war game designed by this Australian design group or something like that.
Yeah.
And I have the World in Flames collector's edition. I have Patent in Flames. I have I got a whole bunch of them anyway, but I was in this phase here where I was like, "Oh, great. I've gone into these depths on Axis and Allies and all these expansions. I want to get even more and get deep into these war games, but I've just never got around to doing more than setting things up and playing around with the introductory scenario. So I got a whole bunch of great things that I want to do, but I
Yeah.
just haven't got around to. So that's like a whole thing that I can't really say that I've played, but I've read through it super complicated and I could spend thousands of hours doing it. And I made up plans about how I would, like you're saying, your friend's room you go into where you have to leave the board set up. I was coming up with a way, okay, how do I do this in my apartment? Okay, I'm going to set this up with magnets and then I can put the thing and I can store the game on the roof so that I can do that and the cats can't knock it down. So I can still have the game there, but you got to, because when you're trying to plan a game that you're going to play for thousands of hours, it's a different thing
Yeah.
than something that you're just going to play for a couple hours. So I didn't get around to doing that one. So yeah, I do have games like that. Twilight Imperium, I played the main game, but I've got some expansions that I haven't got into yet.
Now, the largest in the Guinness Book of World Records, the largest collection of board games is 20,000 by one single owner in
Wow.
the United States. He holds the record. He owns more games than most game stores do. He
Yeah,
actually had to build an entire second house just for storage, and that's true.
impressive. Most
Geek,
impressive.
geek dedication right there. So, uh,
Yeah, and there's so many more games now than like that, like you're saying with the Catan, that started the Euro game explosion. There are so many awesome games, and now there's board game cafes. This is one of the few things that warms my heart about the modern world. You can walk by a store, you can see young people in there playing games happily,
yeah.
not fighting. It's like there's some hope for the human race there when you see people happily playing, and that a place can be in business doing board games and have people getting together having fun. So yes, there's so many more now. I
Now
can't even play them all.
this is true. So we had a couple of regular, hopefully more than a couple, regular listeners on our last podcast, and they provided you with their top tens, right?
Yes.
So I'm gonna
Two
read.
two of them I've been in contact with, which have provided me with their top
Okay,
10 list. I think they have like a bonus
yeah.
honorable mention
So
one.
I'm gonna read Conrad's, and do you want to read Tom's?
Sure.
Okay. So this is from our listener Conrad, and this is his top 10 favorite board games.
They're not necessarily in order. This is
Nope.
just how I wrote them down.
Um, and it's curious if you know all of these when I list them off. But here we go.
Well, we can talk about what I know, but I don't know all of them, but some of them I played with them. Yes.
Okay. Starfleet Battles.
Great game. Conrad's into actually, I wanted to play it for a long time. It was one of those games that I've never played, always wanted to play. Conrad was one that finally got me to start playing it. We've just barely scratched the surface, but that could be like a whole hobby in itself. It's
Okay.
so much you could do. Talk about expansions.
Okay. Eclipse.
Eclipse. Remember I mentioned Twilight Imperium being the big chunky science fiction game,
Yes.
huge many plastic pieces that you can play for like an entire weekend.
Yeah.
Eclipse is like a lighter version of that game. It's a newer game. Thanks, Matt, for getting us into
Okay.
this game. And it's a short game. You can play it in like a couple hours. So we use
Okay.
it sometimes as a D&D game when you don't get enough people for quorum, and then you use it as a fill in game. Great game. I'd say like, 80% of the stuff with 20% of the effort. So
Okay.
it's got some really good things about it. So yeah, love that game.
Have you heard of Machi Koro?
Machi Koro, yes, I've played that with Conrad many times. It's a lighter game. It's this weird kind of Japanese game. I don't really know how to describe it, but it's a lighter, funner kind of thing. It's not as dark as some of these warish games that we're talking about, but it was kind of cool.
Cosmic Encounter.
Cosmic Encounter, that's one I mentioned
Yep.
several times already. Yeah.
Okay.
So I introduced that to him. Core introduced it to me. It's like one of these games that's on there, but it should be on people's lists of some stuff there,
He has Risk Legacy, which we've talked about. He has
which we talked about. He
Twilight
was involved
Imperium.
with it, and his wife and I had there's a whole story of our conflict with the nukes and stuff and mutants,
Okay.
but that's a whole story in itself.
Twilight Imperium, obviously on there.
Imperium, which we just talked about there.
He has the Age of Mythology.
Yeah, there's Age of Mythology board game, which apparently there's a computer game
Yep.
that's Age of Mythology. So Age of Mythology with the expansions, played that many times. That's a great game. I introduced him to that one. Yeah, so
Okay.
that's good.
Axis and Allies Plus, he has on here,
Plus,
obviously.
yeah, plus a bunch of expansions. Yeah,
Yep.
Axis and Allies. Again, what I was saying, the Game Master series, total. Yeah, total great game.
He has one on here that we haven't mentioned. I haven't played it. Pandemic.
Pandemic. Yeah, we played that before the pandemic, and
Yeah.
it's a good game. It's actually a really popular Euro game. And there's remember I mentioned Risk Legacy. There's a Pandemic Legacy that
Okay.
comes out. I think that's on Tom's list too. Yes, Pandemic Legacy is on Tom's list too, and it's a popular game. Yeah.
He has got Settlers of Catan on here, and finally he has which I've never heard of, Terra Mystica.
I might have played that once, but I honestly don't remember.
Oh my God, there's
So,
there's a game that Jason doesn't know.
I mean, no, I mean, there's thousands of games I don't know now. I mean, you look at the things, you're kind of like, wow, she's just blown away, right?
Yeah.
I've probably only played a couple, like maybe 200, and some odd kind of thing. I know when we had a board game club and we used to play most weeks, we had a when we kept records, we had played 85, I think, different games
Yeah.
within that thing, and I had played other things that we never got to in that game, and I played things since then that weren't in that. So it's over 100, but probably not over 200. But there's
Okay.
literally thousands of games now.
Yeah.
You can't play them all.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in. I'm going to call out Tom's favorites, and you're going to talk about these. Now, Tom
Okay.
is I've talked to Tom. I haven't met him yet, but I've talked to him that one time and stuff. And you have been friends with him for a very long time.
Very long
Tom,
time, 85.
Tom
Yeah.
strikes me as the type of guy that is like kind of that master geek level. Like he's above me in a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Like
he's a different brand. We're all geeks and we have our kind of different
brand.
specialties. And then we overlap. We were like a Venn diagram of geekness. That would
Yeah.
be a good challenge for us at some time is the geek Venn diagram
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Okay, so
We
this is
overlap in a lot of areas, but he's got some ones that he's done since we played that
yeah.
he's got that I'd just been introduced to.
Okay, so he's got Eldritch Horror plus the expansions, the four large
That's
boxes,
that's
smaller.
that's one that I haven't played yet, but
Yeah.
he's coming out in February, and he's gonna get me into that with the that's his new hot
Okay. Okay.
favorite game. I don't know how new it is, but he
Okay.
raves about that one. So I take his advice. I'm
Uh,
gonna play
how
that. Yeah,
about Elder Sign?
it's another. So both of these games are that are Lovecraftian games, right? So H.P.
Okay.
Lovecraft, I think we've mentioned before, and other things. And anyone listening to this, probably 90% of you know what we're talking about anyway.
Okay.
Haven't played that yet either.
How about Coup?
It's a light game. I haven't played that either, but it's
Okay.
about coups, like military overthrowing people coups. It sounded cool, but I haven't played it yet, or at
Okay.
least I don't
He
remember it. But
uh, he has Pandemic and Fortress America on here, which we're not going to mention and talk about
yeah,
because we
with
have.
Fortress America, he agrees with me that it's probably one of the best balanced games there, and Pandemic agrees with Conrad on Pandemic. Yeah,
Okay. He has a game called Arc Nova.
it's some kind of he was saying something like a Noah's Ark, some kind of animal game. I don't know, but
Okay.
I haven't played that one yet either.
So one to look in. He has one called Good Wish, Bad Wish.
Something about genies and stuff. So
Interesting.
that,
Okay.
these are all things that I'm like the ones that I haven't heard of. I was like, okay, well, that sounds cool. I'll try that. Yeah,
Yeah, so our listeners, what you should do is you should type these into Wikipedia and Google and just see
I'm there and
results.
talk to your friends. Like, take a game that you like, play it with your friends that haven't played it. Then they can bring a game. That's what we did with the board game club. It's like, yeah,
Right.
okay, whose turn is it to pick what game we're playing now? It's like having a book club, but it was a board game club,
I love
right?
it. Dragon Strike. Do you know what that is?
Dragon Strike apparently was like a TSR game. There was a game called Dungeon,
Uh-huh.
and I guess this was uh, slightly more complicated, but still good introductory gateway drug kind of thing. I remember seeing ads for it or something in Dragon Magazine, but I've never actually played it. It's
Okay.
one of those things from that era that somehow passed me by in the midst of everything. I don't understand why. But yeah.
Takedo.
He said this sounded really interesting. I've never played this, but the way he was explaining it to me was that it's a game where you go seeking to get the most joy. You go on some trip through Japan and you do things along the way of the trip, and the person wins who gets the most joy out of life. And I thought, what a good lesson for people. I spent a lot of time playing board games where you're wiping people out and taking things
Yeah.
over and stuff. And I said how that's bad to do in the real world, but in board games you can kind of have fun. But it's kind of heartwarming to know that there's games that are based on things that are like, yeah, let's try to have a good life, you know? Like that sounds awesome. So yeah, I try to do that. Some people like don't like the violent side of things. So there are games out, like I said, there's games out there for everyone. So
Yeah.
mine are obviously slanted from my risk bias
Yes.
about how I was indoctrinated early, but there's other types of games and yeah,
Which is funny because the the podcast is called the Geek Assassin.
assassin. Yeah, so we got violence everywhere.
So I'm going to go just a little tangent here. So the reason it's called the Geek Assassin webcast, uh, it could be a misnomer if you kind of think about it. The reason that I named it that was obviously first to talk about how I was a geek, but also the assassin part was, and Jason as well. We are deeply, deeply invested into the martial arts and have been for decades. And so it was kind of that weird thing when I talked to a lot of martial artists, I found out that they were geeks on the side, and I'm like,
Hmm.
wow, there's all these like deadly geek guys out there and gals, and I'm like, oh, geek assassins, and that's kind of where it all
Yeah,
came from.
people that you
Um,
don't know about. It's like there's a lot of us that have multiple black belts that would kill you, and you think, oh, this what's this geek gonna do to me? It's like, yeah, well, Jock, you'd be surprised at how quickly you could be killed, but that's
Yeah.
a whole other story.
Don't judge a book by its cover. So that's why it's called the Geek Assassin Webcast. So Takedo, that's really interesting. I'm going to look that one up for sure. And the last one he has on the list, the King of New York, King of Tokyo.
So it sounds like it's like a King Kong Godzilla Rampage kind of thing where
Oh,
there's a
that's cool.
Tokyo one and then the New York one is an expansion. So
Right.
I think when we talked about video games, talked about how Rampage was a great game. But I
Yeah,
mean, who doesn't like Godzilla and King Kong kind of thing?
totally.
So I don't know. I haven't played that that either. But that sounds really good.
You know,
Yeah, and then
it's
as an
that Jason, it's really cool to get these lists from different people because then they kind of
mhm.
expose you to things that's like, wow, it's pretty deep, and you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah, and we've all got overlaps, but we've all got other things that someone else doesn't know. Whether it's like I said, if you're doing a book club, you like share something that, oh, I read this really good thing that's like this. People do it now, I guess modern people, it's like they share videos or pictures or whatever people do on these social media sites. It's like, but this is what you would do with games and comics and stuff. Like, hey man, I read this really good comic here, borrow mine. Oh wait, you've got that. Let's take this.
Yeah.
This is what part of being a geek. Geeks are antisocial, and I'm probably more antisocial than most people in a lot of ways, but we're also super social if you talk to us about the things that we actually like. So if you want to talk to us about, ask me about celebrity culture and stuff, I have no clue and I don't have anything to say. And
Yeah.
sports things, somebody was like, "Oh, what about the game?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't even know what sport it was," right? So it's pretty shameful from those things. But if you get us talking about the other thing, we're super social if you engage on a topic. So part of the thing is be social with other geeks and say, "Hey, I've got this thing that I really like. You might like it too." Like I said, those Venn diagrams, we don't overlap in every way, but you'd
Yeah.
be surprised. And other geeks can really enrich your thing by being able to share lists. So I would invite anyone else to share their list, top X list, whatever.
So this is what there's not like a secret handshake or a nod or anything
Too
like that.
bad. It would make life a lot easier to
But
do it.
there's a particular, if you're observant around you, you'll see things out all the time. And I do, I travel a lot for doing seminars. And I usually see it in airports. It's either someone wearing a shirt, which is super obscure. It's really meta. There you go, right? So
Somebody would get something subtle and they
so
would know it if they knew it.
so that's Conan from Conan. Two snakes. So
Good
it's
timing.
stuff like so, Jay. I will see guys with the geek culture, whatever, and the more obscure, the better, in my opinion. Like if you had something that just said Star Wars on it, I'm
Yeah,
like, okay, I get it.
that's
Like,
easy. But it's like the game that the hardness levels, the challenge levels, like, okay, beginner level says Star Wars right on it. But
right. And then it kind of goes up from there. So I remember a couple years ago, I was sitting down and there's a guy, he had his laptop up and I saw it and it had a small little sticker and it said Wayland Yutani. And I was
I
like,
was
oh,
gonna
that's
say it was a
amazing.
Wayland one. Yeah.
It totally was. And so, alien reference. Anyway, so I made a comment because I was sitting across from him about it. And he looked up at me and we had this like 10-minute conversation, obviously, about
Yeah.
it. So that's why I have all these shirts that are like massive geek culture shirts because I love it. Um,
Yeah.
and so it's those
Those
little,
who know.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
those like little subtle things. Or you're in Starbucks lineup and then someone sees something, or you make a comment to the barista, and then all of a sudden the guy next to you
Hmm.
goes, "Hey, that was from Big Trouble Little China." I'm like, "Yeah, that's amazing."
Yeah.
So, um, and it's funny, Jay, because I looked this up and it says geek culture is one of the fastest growing fandom sectors between
Hmm.
Magna, tabletop games, comics, conventions. The geek economy has outpaced Hollywood for years. Gen X nostalgia,
Hmm.
including 80s vibes, is now the dominant force in entertainment.
Yeah. Well, you think about it, like some of those video games are bigger than movies, especially
Yeah.
with the direct Hollywood's putting out. But yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. So Did you play? I guess you played board games before role-playing games, right? That's how that be correct?
Yes, because I started Risk in the 70s, and I didn't start D&D until, and well, 83 is when I got it, so it must have been 82 when because I played it first, got introduced to it. So probably 82 I started, and then 83 I actually got my own copy and played. But Risk was definitely a 70s thing, and I started with the plastic version,
Yeah.
not the wood version as I remember it.
And now remember this, listener. Jason is throwing out these back in 82, which probably feels like yesterday for many of us because it does. It's crazy to see that over
It's
40
living in the
years.
80s.
Yeah. So um it's fascinating to me how fast time flies, but our minds are still stuck several decades behind us, I guess.
And you enjoy what you enjoy, and even you can pass these games on, people can still enjoy them. Like some games are timeless, some don't hold
Yeah.
up, some do. So I mean, you're talking about, like, I mean, like, look, how long has chess been around for, and you can still enjoy and play
Right.
chess to this day. Like, I mean, talk about a board game that's got some replayability and life in
Mhm.
it, right? Like, some of these other games will be classics too. Not all of them will be, but some of these games really deserve a closer look.
So you should go out there and you should go to your local board game shop. Many cities have them, and sit down, pull a game off the shelves, get some friends, and sit around and play
Yeah,
something. Um,
they're
Pretty
amazing. Like,
fun.
you think about board game shops, how cool this is. Like, we didn't have that. We had to find someone that had the game or buy the game and try it. This, you can go into a store and you can try before you buy, or even just try and not buy,
Mhm.
and you can eat there while you're doing it too. It's really wonderful. Like, I mean, that would have kept me out of a lot of more trouble too as a kid if they would have had places like that around. But you think about that, it's so great that you can go in. It's like a library for board games, and then you can just go in and play them, and then if you like them, you can buy the games that are there.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful.
So before we end the podcast, I'm going to just tell a little story. So I was introduced to my first mini war game that I ever played, which was called Revolt on Antares, which was a Steve
Oh
Jackson
yes,
game. And now, if you
yeah,
remember the Steve Jackson games, they usually came in a little plastic thing. They're like this. A couple hours to play. They were pretty
so many
simple.
good games.
So when I
Car
play,
Wars.
yeah, Car
Sorry.
Wars. There's another one. But I played Revolt on Antares, which I really loved, and I remember playing as a 14 and 15-year-old. And then decades later, I ended up going, "Oh, I remember that game. I wonder if I can find it." I found a copy on eBay and I bought it. And I've shown you it before. And I think we tried. I think we played like a half a game or something like that once, but super fun. And it's nice to revisit these things years later, I think. Any comments before we go, Jay?
We could talk for hours and hours more about these games, but there's games, find a game you like. There's probably a bunch of other games like it. Find somebody that you know that likes things, get them to recommend things, try them, play them with other geeks, and it's just wonderful. There's so many of them out there, and if you're like, well, I don't like that kind of game, don't judge it, because there's a whole bunch of other games that, if you don't like one type of thing, don't judge all board games like that. Like I said, you can have a thing where you're nuking people into mutants and taking over the universe. You could have another thing where apparently you're just learning to have a good time traveling.
Mhm.
So there's a super variety there. You can take games that take 20 minutes to play. You can play games that take hundreds or thousands of hours to play. Everything in between. You can have games that are good single player games, two-player games, giant multiplayer games. Multiplayer games didn't just come with computing things.
Mhm.
There's a wide variety for whatever you want. There's a game out there for you. So just take a look around. It's a great website, Board Game Geek. Haven't been there in a while, but I mean, I
Yep,
assume it's still got to be going.
it is.
Um, from there, I had to stop logging in because like I was buying too many games. So sometimes you got to protect yourself. Some things, there's cool shit, which is a big thing for me, but you got to know when
Yeah.
too much cool can, yeah, cause you issues. So
Well, Jason, I appreciate you joining me on the Geek Assassin webcast. To all our watchers and listeners out there, appreciate you. We're going to continue to bring you some pretty cool stuff in 2026.
that's
So
right. We're all geek all the time.
We are.
So
So stay tuned for some pretty remarkable episodes and some crazy conspiracy theories. Oh, it's coming. So as we used to say, keep on geeking on, and
mhm.
we'll see you next time on the Geek Assassin Webcast.
The name of a samurai is engraved in his behavior, not in his blade.